The Last Light. After her grandmother passed away, Lila inherited the family's countryside mansion. It was a grand, aging house with ivy crawling up the stone walls, towers looming against the sky, and darkened windows that seemed to peer out like eyes. Her grandmother, Helen, had been the last of a long line to live there, and she had always kept the mansion locked tight, warning Lila that some places were better left alone. The first few days in the house were peaceful, with Lila unpacking, exploring, and letting memories of visiting her grandmother in the summers wash over her. One evening, as she was unpacking in her bedroom, she noticed something strange. A single light glowed from the far corner of the house, a room she didn't remember ever seeing lit before. Curious, she made her way through winding halls and narrow staircases, following the light. She reached a tall door with an iron handle and twisted it open. Inside, she found a small, dark space with a single lantern flickering in the center, casting long, unnatural beams across the walls. There were markings scratched into the floor, deep and uneven, as though someone had been scraping at it for years. Suddenly, the lantern dimmed, and she felt a chill pass through the air. She could have sworn she heard faint breaths, almost like someone exhaling right next to her. She backed out of the space, shutting the door, trying to shake off the odd feeling that had come over her. That night, Lila struggled to sleep. She heard creaks and groans echoing through the house, though she told herself it was just old pipes. But as she drifted in and out of uneasy dreams, she thought she saw shadows flit across her ceiling, figures moving silently through the corridors. The next morning, she discovered something even stranger. On her desk lay an old, leather-bound journal she hadn't noticed before. It was her grandmother's. Curious, she flipped it open. Most of the entries were normal, notes about gardening, recipes, the names of friends, but toward the back, the entries took a darker turn. One entry read, "I've seen it again, the flickering light. It appears whenever I'm alone, following me from room to room, corner to corner. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but it feels too real, as though it's waiting for something." As Lila read on, a sense of unease filled her. Helen had written about seeing a figure in the house, an elusive presence that seemed to grow stronger with each sighting. "I don't know how to get rid of it," Helen had written in shaky handwriting. "I think it's trapped here, in the place where no light should ever shine." That evening, as Lila sat by the fire, she saw it again, the same lantern light, flickering down the hallway. This time, it was closer. She watched, frozen, as it moved slowly along the wall, stopping just outside the parlor where she sat. Gathering her courage, Lila stood and walked to the doorway. The light vanished, but as she stood there, she felt a strange pull, an urge to find it, to follow it. Her heart pounded, but she pressed forward, as if guided by an invisible thread. The house grew colder as she moved through it, every step making her feel as if she were descending somewhere darker, deeper. She found herself in front of a small, unassuming door at the back of the house. Slowly, she opened it and stepped inside. The lantern light appeared before her, floating in the center of the room. The markings on the floor were deeper here, claw marks that spiraled outward. She stared, feeling a strange sadness mixed with terror. The light brightened, casting a sharp, eerie glow across the walls, and as it did, Lila saw faint outlines in the dust. Handprints, smudges, as though someone had pressed their hands against every inch of the walls, searching for a way out. Then, a voice filled the air, a low, weary sound, as if someone were trying to speak after years of silence. "Please, find me," it said. Lila's heart raced and she backed toward the door, but her legs wouldn't move. The lantern flared, blinding her. She stumbled, falling to her knees, her hands brushing against something cold and metallic. She realized, to her horror, that it was a small, rusty key. Before she could think, she felt a hand on her shoulder, cold, brittle fingers pressing into her skin. She looked up and saw a figure standing above her, face gaunt and eyes dark, with a mouth that seemed to be twisted in a permanent expression of agony. "Find me," the figure repeated, voice barely audible. Lila scrambled backward, clutching the key, her mind racing. She bolted from the room, slamming the door behind her. She ran back to her bedroom and locked herself in, trembling, unable to shake the image of the figure. The next day, she packed her belongings, unable to stay in the house any longer. But as she prepared to leave, she found herself drawn to the small key in her pocket. Without knowing why, she turned and made her way back to that room, her footsteps echoing in the silence. When she opened the door, the lantern lay extinguished in the center of the floor. The markings, the handprints, everything had vanished. She held up the key, staring at it, wondering what it could possibly unlock. And then she saw it, a small trapdoor beneath the lantern, previously hidden in the shadows. Heart pounding, she knelt and inserted the key, twisting it. The door creaked open and a rush of cold air hit her face, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something old, something buried long ago. As she peered down into the darkness below, she heard the voice again, clearer now, full of sorrow. "Thank you," it murmured. Then, with a final flicker, the lantern lit itself one last time, casting a faint, eerie glow into the depths below. Lila never told anyone what she found beneath the trapdoor. She left the mansion that very day, leaving it and its strange history behind. But at night, in her dreams, she still sees the lantern flickering in the distance, waiting patiently for someone else to find it. And in those moments, she knows that some lights are meant to stay lost, no matter the cost.